Hi, I'm Chris, N9CVR. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make HamThings' newest product. So this little pile of wire here is a roll-up J-pole kit. There we go. Obviously I can't keep the entire thing in frame, so let me roll it back up. The idea behind this is to get new hams. First of all, I'm going to guess they're probably going to get their QRZ1 HT, and those aren't known to have the best antennas on them because they're an HT. So this will help a new ham get on the air more reliably, talk a little further, just get more enjoyment out of the hobby. Price point is supposed to be very, very low, lower than any other J-pole I've seen, because you know what? You're building it. I give you the parts, you build it, and this video will show you how. So let's step over to the bench and we'll take a look. How do you build one? So here are the things you're going to need in order to build the roll-up J-pole. Obviously you'll need the kit, wire cutters of some kind, wire strippers, soldering iron and solder. I'm just kind of going to move these to the side as I'm talking about them. Some sort of knife or like Swiss Army knife scissors work really well too. And then the last thing is you're going to need a heat gun. So for convenience, I'll move everything out of the way. And here we go. So you open up the kit. First thing you may as well get started with is this chunk of ladder line. And you'll notice on it, there is, one side has one mark, the other has two marks. And then the opposite side should have an open, so I don't know how to put it. Here you have the two ladders connected. On this side you're going to have a space between the two conductors. So we're going to start from here, and what we're going to do is cut the conductor, or cut the center, and then we're going to strip these. So let me do that real quick. If the wire strippers won't get them, which is, oh, there, I got it. If the wire strippers won't get it, you can also use, for example, the excuse me, the hobby knife to cut that down. Now what we're going to do is fold these down just like that, and then solder them together. I should have mentioned, not necessary, but a helpful tool is a pair of helping hands. Now, this next mark is eventually where the coax is going to go. This is going to take some picking around with it. I highly recommend using, for example, a hobby knife or something like that. But basically what we're going to do is strip just right around here on both sides so that we could later attach the coax. Now moving to the other side, so here's the part we just folded and soldered and then put the little holes in. Moving to the other side, you're going to want to take one of the two sides and strip it. Doesn't really matter which one. There we go. So I've put the ladder line to the side, and now I'm going to just strip one end of this wire. It's 14 gauge, if that helps you any. And you don't need to strip much, maybe 1/4 inch, something like that. There we go. Now, and here is where I'm going to bring the helping hands in again. I highly recommend it for this step. But a friend or just a lot of swearing will work too. Just make sure not to swear on air. I'm going to position these two so that they touch. Something like that. And we are going to solder that. Next step, I'm going to take my roll of coax. This one has a BNC connector on the end of it. It doesn't really matter which one you do. And now I'm going to do a couple of things. First, in my bag, I have a whole bunch of various different pieces of heat shrink. I'm going to take one of the longer but thinner pieces of heat shrink. At this point, it may be helpful to take, a pair of needle nose or something like that and just kind of stretch the heat shrink a little. Stretch the end of it. Something like that. And we'll feed it through and work it on. Now I'm going to come to the other end of my coax. And this, really, there's no better tool for it than either a hobby knife, or if you happen to have a coax cutter, but I'm going to assume you don't. And basically what I'm going to do is give it, I don't know, 3/8, half an inch, something like that. And I am just cutting the outer jacket. I'm not cutting the braid. Like that. Now again, a hobby knife is really useful because you can use the back of it to kind of unwind the coax. Unwind the braid. Again, I'm not cutting the braid, I'm using the back dull end of the hobby knife to kind of massage the braid out. Now I'm just going to take all of it, send it off to the side here, and kind of twist it off so it looks nice. Now I can use a pair of strippers or something like that, and I'm going to leave just a little bit of space here so that there's no chance of the center conductor and the braid touching. Giving it about a 1/16 of an inch. And here we go. I've brought the ladder line and wire back in. And now this is going to be important. This wire has to go to the center conductor of the coax. And then the short stub goes to the braid. So it's going to sit like this. Again, a pair of helping hands is going to really help you out. This is going to be a pain, but do what you got to do to get it working. Right now, I have only the center conductor ready to solder, and that's okay. Let's send that home. And now I'll get the braid. At this point, we have a functional J-pole antenna. We're going to want to put more heat shrink and a couple other things on it, which I will discuss in a second. But here's one more of these. If you have an optional device, either an antenna analyzer or a VNA, now is a great time to hook it up and make sure that everything works. If your ohmic value, if your impedance is too low, this junction needs to move up. If it's too high, it needs to move down. If your SWR is too high or low, well, if it's too high and you're resonant on too low of a band, you can trim a bit off of the wire. Be very careful if you choose to trim a bit off of the stub here, because estimate cutting 1 inch off of, let me say it this way, cutting 1 inch off of this stub is equivalent to cutting about 4 inches off of this wire. So as this works, it should be good. But if you want to do some fine tuning, play with it, but be very careful what you do. Now we're just going to start buttoning things up. So I'm going to get out my other stuff from the kit. You can put away in the bag. This is just a little handy strap. We can deal with that later. I am going to take the larger, thicker piece of heat shrink, send it over the end of the wire. This may be a little bit of a challenge because this is actually marine grade heat shrink with adhesive in it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, send it all the way down until I get to my feed point, and then just try to overlap both ends, something like that. Next, I'm going to take another longer but thinner piece of heat shrink, send it down the wire, and depending on how your J-pole is constructed, how your ladder line is, you may at this point want, and I'll do this, to cut a chunk out of the ladder. I'm just cutting a small chunk to give this heat shrink something to grab onto. Now there's a tiny little piece of heat shrink that can go over this end. And then we'll have one more, but this is starting to get a little messy. So here's where I want to bring out the heat gun, and I will shrink all of this down. While it's hot, I'm going to quickly grab this end and just pinch it. Hold it for a second till it cools off and let go. That's going to seal this end of the ladder line in. I got 2 more pieces of heat shrink, so I'm going to do the same. This end, again, I'm going to kind of take the pair of pliers and try to make sure that it's grabbing everything well. A nice pair of needle nose might help you with this. We're on the home stretch now. Now take the piece of string and just make a little loop out of it. I'm going to just do like this. Little double overhand knot. Something like this. And basically what we're going to end up doing is, here's the end of our wire. The loop is going to go somewhere in here, and the heat shrink's going to go somewhere in here. Kind of your choice how you do it. Basically, I'm just taking it, I'm taking one end of it, passing it through the other end. I'm being a little finicky about it because I would rather the knot be inside the heat shrink. And you see it kind of slides around. So that's what the heat shrink's for. Actually, I'm going to redo this. I'm going to put the heat shrink on first. See if I can half undo that. Heat shrink first. Then comes our knot with loop. And now we just kind of send this all down the heat shrink, making sure that the heat shrink is going to cover the end of the wire. Make sure that the loop is good and make sure that it's actually still on there, and then send it home. At this point, I want to stop and say, be very careful with the heat gun and the string. You don't want to melt the string, you just want to heat the heat shrink. Once that's shrunk, grab your pliers real quick again and just squeeze that end down. 2 more steps and we're done. A J-pole is what's called a balanced antenna, and this is an unbalanced feed line, which is going to cause problems. You can actually notice this again if you have a antenna analyzer with you. You can plug it in and grab the coax, and you'll see that the plot of the antenna is going to change. So let's change that. What we're going to do is make what's called an ugly balun. Take your coax and make, oh, I don't know, a 3-inch or so loop. And just make an overhand knot in it. This is a little challenging to do on camera. Oops, didn't make an overhand knot. Here we go. There's an overhand knot. You can adjust the size, 2, 3-inch, something like that. And now I'm just going to keep making overhand knots, trying not to tangle the coax. Something like that. Last step, I promise. We're going to take our little zip thing and put it somewhere near the end. And that's it. You might want to nicely roll up your antenna. So let's do that. Given that it is a roll-up J-pole, roll it up. Use the little Velcro strap to hold it together. And you're ready to go. Well, thanks for watching. If you got any questions, please feel free to comment down below. If you like this kind of stuff, if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Got a whole bunch of stuff on my channel. I'll have more about this J-pole and how it works and things like that, and why we've done some of the crazy things we've done with it. And yeah, all sorts of other crazy ham radio adventures. That's really what I'm doing. So, like, favorite, subscribe, hit the notification bell, otherwise you won't see that I posted, and we'll see you on the next video. 73.